Buckle up, everybody. Today, we are going to be delivering one of the most important videos that you are going to be watching in 2025. If you are at all interested in making more money, increasing your salary, you need to stop what you're doing, get your notepads out, grab a few pens and some highlighters, and watch this video. Salary increases 2025. One of the first things that I really want to get stuck in on is this mindset. And I hear it all the time of people saying, why should I work hard for somebody else when it's only making them more money? Oh, it drives me insane because people need to understand that in life, the amount that you earn is directly attributed to the amount of value that you bring to people. The more value that you bring to more people, the more you get paid. It is as simple as that. So if you are somebody that is actively pushing against the business that you're working for, you're not trying to bring any value, you're not working hard, you're half-arsing it, and you're not bringing that value, why would they return the favor? Now, if you're someone that just wants to walk out into the middle of a city centre, throw your hand up into the air and say, I'm Tyler Barker, you don't know me, but can everybody give me a quid? No one's going to come up to you and say, do you know what? I like the look of you. Here's a tenner. Now, it's just pointless exchange. However, if I was to start offering something to people, if I was handing out iPhones for £10, do you think people are going to be coming over to me and going, that's value, that's great value for money, here's my money?
Of course they are, 100%.
That's the mindset people need to start thinking about when it comes to their salary and thinking about how much they get paid and where they are within the business. They need to be thinking about what value they bring to that business first and foremost.
I mean, the way I look at it is the business that you're working for is essentially the vehicle that can drive you at whatever sort of speed that you want to get to where you want to go. You know, like you could be driving at 10 mile an hour in a business and you're just sort of plodding along, or you can try and get yourself a turbo booster and try and get yourself going at 50 mile an hour. And then you can learn what you've learned and then go from there. And if you want to stay in that company, it's advised, but you can then take what you've learned and move or create your own business again from there.
Yeah, so taking this notion of bringing value to people. So look at the business that you're in, and let's use our business as an example. You know, we have a sales department within our business. You know, we sell to multinationals. Some of our customers are worth 50 billion and over. You know, so we're selling to some real high flyers. Now, the only reason we can sell to them is because we add value to those customers as a business. Now, for the people that work within our business, if you are, let's say, working in a marketing division and you need to increase your value to that business to add value to your salary. So what are the first things that I'd think about doing? Well, my job in marketing is to what? Generate leads. So if I approach my manager and tell them that I'm going to start increasing the lead generation that I'm bringing into the business, I'm going to reduce the customer acquisition cost of the business by bringing new customers in at a higher frequency. I'm also going to increase the customer satisfaction of the customers that we already have, which will increase our lifetime value of those customers. No manager in their right mind who has just had you walk into their office talking about how much additional value that you're going to bring to their business is going to say, well, what should I give you? I'm not giving you anything in return for that. Mental. And this mindset needs to be changed. Whatever role that you are in, you need to be perspicacious enough to be able to look around you and see what you're doing on a daily basis. I don't care whether you're in a warehouse. I don't care whether you're cleaning the floors. I don't care whether you're making the teas. There is always a way within your job role to add more value. And for those that are struggling, that haven't got a clue on how to increase the value that they're offering the company they're working for, at the very least, approach your manager, ask them, what can I do to increase my value to this company?
But that's exactly what I'd say is if you ask what more can I do instead of, it's a bit more carrot and stick, you want to try and you want to get your money first and then put the value in. It's really ask to put the value in first and then get the money because, the company's not losing anything. They're just going, bloody, do you want to give us more value? Yeah, please do. And then when you've got yourself to a position where you're almost, they can't do without you because you just become that valuable, the salary will then follow.
And what's funny about that is that you almost find that they're working for you.
Yeah,
because you have so much power within the business now. You're so valuable. You become the one that dictates to your employer what you earn, as long as it's in line with the value that you bring. Let's just use an easy example with easy numbers, sales. If I'm generating £50,000 worth of sales or turnover in a business at 30% gross profit, I'm only generating £15,000 in gross profit. I'd be out of my mind to speak to my manager and say, I want 100K. You're living in la la land. It's just ridiculous how people have these mindsets. Whereas if you want 100K and you're only working at sort of 30% gross profit, you need to be generating some serious cash in terms of that turnover to be able to generate that money. At least 300,000, 333,000 actually. But people need to have that level of mindset when approaching these problems. They need to be bringing a value.
Yeah, most people are going into, their manager's office and they want the money, but, sometimes the managers don't tell them what they actually need to do to gain that sort of salary increase. So it's about having the communication with someone and the managers to find out exactly what's required. But I think the value comes first and the salary comes after. That's the best way of looking at it.
100%, which brings us on to a good point. Is if your manager doesn't actively know or can't increase the value that you're bringing to the business or post the value being brought to the business, and then you can speak to your manager after having completed the tasks that have increased the value and they're reluctant to give you any more, leave. Do not stick around for a company that isn't going to reciprocate the value that you're bringing because, again, too many people become complacent and spend far too long within a business that isn't rewarding them properly. So some of the things to look out for is make sure everybody that's watching this video, do you have KPIs, which is key performance indicators, and do you have goals or targets that you need to be hitting every quarter, every month, every 6 months, every 12 months? And do you have a reward-based system in place for hitting those goals or targets? Because if you don't, you need to have an immediate word with your manager and get something set up. Because how can you work to a set of standards and how can you have a value attributed to your salary when you haven't even got a set of goals to tick against? So if you haven't got that in place, knock on your manager's door the second you get back into work after watching this video and go and ask for those goals and targets.
And do you know what would be, even if you don't have any targets and you've listened to obviously what we've just said, what goes even further than that is if you were to write down targets that you think you should be able to hit and then go to them with that and say, look, I haven't got any targets at the moment, but this is what I think I can hit. And I'd love for you to kind of keep me to these standards. And if I do, could I get the wage increase that, I want? You're entering into instant negotiation with someone who's actually not even that prepared. And you're going to blow their mind if you go in with something like that.
The way I see it is failure to prepare, prepare to fail. If you're walking into any meeting, especially one that's as important as this about getting your salary up in 2025, and you've got no ammunition in your arsenal to speak to your manager and say, I've done this, I've hit my targets, I've added value, I've gone above and beyond, I'm doing more than I'm being paid to do currently, and I've been doing it for X number of time. You can walk in with that arsenal and your manager is going to be there sort of stone-faced and you're going to demand what you want from them, which is what you deserve. It's not being done through this naivety that most people have nowadays, where they think they're God's gift, the best thing since sliced bread. They're the best human in the world that deserves millions of pounds just for waking up in the morning. You're going in with solid facts and solid evidence to support why you are valuable to that company. So that is definitely something that you should be doing. Now, one of the things that you shouldn't be doing, and it irks me to death when our team do this, and this is why we've created a policy and we've been really open about the way we promote within the business, because we want all of our staff to do this. But when we get a knock on the door, and don't be this person, but when we get a knock on the door and people say, cost of living's gone up. Well, I've done a Google of my job role and the marketplace is saying that I'm worth X. And I'm just like, I said, are you okay in the head? Like, the marketplace has nothing to do with you. You're not the marketplace. And I grant the cost of living's gone up, but do you know what that means? My costs have gone up as a business, which means that if you're doing exactly the same thing and now you're demanding more from me when I'm already paying more because my costs are going up as well, and you're doing the exact same job, then how am I meant to be able to give you a pay rise just because cost of living's gone up? Now, I appreciate the sentiment. I appreciate that it's tough for everyone. But if you're not actively growing and evolving within the business, don't knock on my door and say, cost of living's gone up, so I want a pay rise. I'd happily show you the exit.
Well, the answer sometimes is, I tell you what, then just go and work in the public sector, because that's how it works over in the public sector, but you're not going to get much progression. But no, I completely agree. It's all about value, and you got to put forward the value first. Sometimes you can go in and you've been there a while and you can try and say, oh, I want a pay rise, I've done this, that, and the other, but it's not the right way of doing it. You want to go in knowing in full confidence that you deserve it, you're going to get it, and that if you don't, the company's going to miss you quite a lot, because you've put that much value in already and you've written it down, you've got it, and it's been prepared for the meeting.
100%. So another thing that, again, you all need to be focusing on, because we're talking about increasing your value. So how do we actually increase our value? Now, we have done an episode on that. We'll put a link to it in the description on how to increase your value, because it's super important that everybody that's watching this, if you want more money, you need to increase your value. It's as simple as that. But some of the little snippets from that video is, number one, increase your knowledge, increase the amount of learning that you're taking place. If you're in sales and you're only, as I said earlier, generating 50,000 in sales, the only way you're going to get more sales is by being better at sales. It's as simple as that. So you best go and buy every book on sales you can find, watch every video on sales that you can find, and I'll be a monkey's uncle if nobody can get better at sales after they've read all those books and watched all those videos and actually put them into practice. Because I know that I've read easily 10 to 15 books on sales alone, and I generate now over £2 million worth of sales myself every year in my business. And before I did that, when I first joined the business, I was generating maybe 200,000. So the evidence is there. From the learning and the application of actually taking what I've learned, putting it into practice from the books that I've read. The Challenger Sale is a really, really good book that's quite new and modern and teaches a good way of sales. Go and watch podcasts. This one, Patrick Bet-David, very, very good. Simon Squibb talks about sales, but just use your head. Just Google it, put it into YouTube, how to sell, and maybe even niche it down to how to sell what you're actively trying to sell. And if I can go from 200,000 to 2 million, both in a 12-month period, nothing's happened other than the fact that I'm just better at sales. And again, no manager or no boss or owner of a business in the world is, if their salesman or woman has gone from 200,000 in annual turnover to 2 million, are they going to go, well, sorry, I can't afford to give you any more money? Mental.
I mean, the biggest analogy that you can hone down on what you pretty much just said is, when you first learn to drive a car, everyone thinks they're the best driver on planet Earth, but you come to learn that as you're doing it day in, day out, driving to work, driving here, driving there, you get better and better the more that you do it. And it's the same with anything in life, the more that you practice at it and do it and are active in that thing that you're doing, you will get better at it.
The simple way to look at it is if you had Elon Musk's brain, you'd be a billionaire. I would love his brain. I'd be a billionaire. So yeah, that Neuralink might be able to start.
Tell you what, we're not far off.
Absolutely. You might be able to start sharing some of that wisdom. But this is the thing. You're only as valuable as what you know and what you give. Elon Musk knows a great deal about so many important things, whether it's rockets, cars, clean energy, satellite Wi-Fi's, battery technology, but most of all, he knows about running a business. He knows about generating value. And that is why he's a billionaire. You could strip everything off him. You could take his companies. You could take all his money. You could take all his assets. It's a bit far. But you could take his clothes, whatever. You could take everything off him, leave him penniless in the street. If you kept his brain and his knowledge, he'd be a billionaire again in a few years, guaranteed, because he's done it and he knows how to do it. And knowledge is the most important way. So make sure that you're all learning. Make sure you're studying. And again, you don't know what you don't know. So make sure that you're actively in your role. If you're in marketing, don't go and study how to import dishes from China. If you're in marketing, study psychology, study lead generation, find the books and podcasts centered around marketing and your niche. Make sure it's relevant, but make sure that you are actively learning. You should all be reading. And just because you've left school, that doesn't mean that learning should stop. You should all be looking at trying to complete a book a month at least. And the value that you get from that book will only be passed on to you for you to then use it in your job or in your business. And it will only, again, increase the value of that company or yourself.
It's finding any way of speeding up the learning process. Now, you can work your job and you'll get better at a pace. But if you can do these other things, like, I'm really proud of my girlfriend at the moment. She's got a new job and she's not in marketing, but she's not only just looking at that job, she's now also doing some freelance work on the side, again in marketing, looking at, like you're saying, videos on Rory Sutherland and these sorts of people. And it's just, she's driving again at like 100 mile an hour instead of just 30 mile an hour in marketing. So she's going to become dedicated to marketing and become the guru.
Let's hope so. No, more power to her. She's taking action, which all of this is centered around taking action. And again, that's a massive thing. It does take a brave person to be able to walk into your manager's office or your boss's office and say, look, I want to talk about my salary. But unfortunately, we both own a business and we employ 15 staff. And again, we actively encourage all of our staff to knock on the door and to, in fact, we'll share this podcast with them. They watch our podcast anyway, but we're going to share this with them. So it encourages them to knock on their door because it benefits us. If they're bringing more value to our business and we're paying them more, it's a two-way exchange. It works to the benefit of both parties. Both of us will be better off with them adding more value, them being more knowledgeable, and our business growing or being more efficient, whatever value that they're adding. It helps both. It helps everyone. And if everybody in the world did that, the world would be a better place. How could it not be if you've got a bunch of more functional human beings that all know more, that can all give more to each other? How can the world not be a better place? There's that really lovely expression where actually give a man a fish, you'll feed him for a day. You teach a man to fish, you'll feed him for a lifetime. And that is what it's all about. It's about having that understanding that the more you know, the more that you will get in return.
A really good way of increasing your knowledge is to just teach, other people. And, it's what we like to try and do with this podcast, and the people that end up watching. Hopefully, I'm sure that some will learn and then take these points, put them into action, and then better their own lives.
Again, there's 3 ways of learning, isn't there? So the best ways is, first of all, it's that you either see it or you hear about it or you read about it. The second best way is doing it. And then the third and final way is to teach it. And I always found whenever I was sort of in a sport or whether I was trying to learn something myself, the highest ROI in terms of time when I was trying to learn something was always at the stage when I was trying to coach or teach people. Like boxing was always a big one. You know, I'm big into my boxing and I've been doing it for 8 years. And I still make mistakes. You know, look at Anthony Joshua. Look at his last fight. He's an absolute stinker. And again,
Tyson Fury, they're all dropping at the minute.
it's a shame, but this is the thing. Like, you know, it's a shame for UK heavyweights. But, you know, the reality is he's been boxing. He's the world heavyweight champion, or he's a 2-time, 3-time world heavyweight champion, same as Tyson Fury. They still make mistakes. He still has a coach to sort of teach him through these things. So when you're actively teaching, it goes into your own head as well. And it's like, right, even though I'm talking about keeping their hands up and how they jab and how they could improve, it goes into your head and goes, well, actually, do you know what? That's useful information for me to think about as well. So again, importance of learning, huge. One of the next big ones for increasing your salary or increasing your value in 2025, bit of a cheeky one, this one, but it's really, really beneficial.
I'm bracing myself.
And we might need to hide this from our team, but is actively speaking to your boss and asking them for shares or asking them for dividends, because the beauty of that is it shows a willingness to be with the company that you're currently working for a very, very long time. And when employers look at their staff, they have to think about your lifespan within the company, because as much as it's their business, it's very different. Like for us, for example, in our company, we know we're going to be there forever. We're going to have an involvement forever. It's a family business. We've been there for 10 years, 11 years already, and we're going to continue to be there for a long, long time. But Jim, who's just joined, it's a fictional person, by the way. Jim, who's just joined, he might only be there for 6 months. He might be there for 12 months. He might be there for 5 years. He might get a better job offer. He might become sick. He might decide that the job isn't for him anymore. So I've invested so much time into Jim and trained him and tried to give him an incentive to get started and give him a good salary. But the time investment to get him trained in the role and have him to become competent in the role, that's an investment for me as an employer. So if I have Jim approach me on a Monday and say, look, I want to be with your business for a long, long time. I love what you're doing. I love the vision. I love the mission of where this company is going. And I want to be a bigger part of this company. So with that, I'd love to have a discussion with regards to a percentage share or a percentage ownership of the company to show my dedication. What would I have to do to get there? What would I have to do to be able to take a percentage of that so that I could feel a larger part of the company and have it become a part of my future? Again, if an employee said that to me, I'd be thinking, wow, I've got someone that wants to stick it out with my company for a long time. They really want to add some value into this company because they care that much about it. They want a percentage of it. And think about, again, I go back to value because that's what this is all about. If I give them 1%, 5%, the harder they work, the more valuable that they make the business, they're now aligned, both of us are aligned to the actual value of the business. The value of the company goes up, the value of their share ownership goes up. The company's worth $1 million and they've got 10%, they have 100 grand. If they work really, really hard to get the value of the business up to 2 million, they've just doubled that 100,000 to 2. They're now worth 200,000. So their interest is to bring the value of the business up with you. And so if you are speaking to your boss about this, make sure that you go in with that long-term mindset and that you want to align with the business. But it can be a really, really, really good way to get your value up and start increasing your salary. Because the other thing that you can start doing once you've got an ownership share in the company is take dividends. And that is a massive, massive tax benefit. And we'll probably do an episode on some of the tax benefits that are currently out there and link it in the description.
Well, it's a benefit to both the company and the individual. But on that same point, I mean, it makes sense. And that's probably why some of the bigger blue chip companies, they do sometimes give shares to employees because, again, it's for the mutual benefit of the company and the employee to drive in the same and be at the same tip of the spear, driving in the same direction.
Well, companies like Amazon, Facebook, Starbucks, I believe, they all give their employees shares of the business once they've shown an element of loyalty to the actual company itself. So it just again backs up the point as to what we're saying is that these big companies recognize that loyalty is very valuable. Time served is very, very valuable. So if you're approaching your manager and speaking to them and telling them that you want to serve a long, sounds like a jail sentence, that you want to serve a period of time with that business, and be honest about it. Because a lot of people have decided that, they're trying to lie to their managers. Oh, this will be my forever home. This will be where I'm going to spend the rest of my career. People can see through that. So go in with an honest mindset and say, I want to be here for 10 years. I want to be here for 5 years. This is what I want to achieve in those 5 years. This is what I want to achieve in 15 years, whatever it might be. Be honest about it. And then you can ask the question with regards to share options or potential giveaways and explain why you want those shares, because you want to increase the value of the company.
Yeah. I mean, and the minute you go in and ask that question, even if it was an obvious, in some companies, they're not going to do it, but even if you go in and just ask the question, they're going to go, bloody hell, not had that one before. He's a bit special. What's going on? So even if you're not going to get anywhere with it, they're still going to change their whole mindset with that individual and if you're the one that's asked.
It's a really good point.
To really make them think, bloody hell, that's a bit mad.
Well, it's a really good point. It's just a really good point for this. Put yourselves in the minds of your employers just for 5 minutes. Think about what they want to hear. And it sounds manipulative, but at the end of the day, we're all trying to sort of win out here in this game of life. And sometimes a bit of manipulation goes a long way.
That's what sales is for them, not manipulation, but, saying the right thing.
Well, as long as you're doing it for the right reasons, and again, as I say, there's no conning going on here. You're not trying to famoose anyone. You're simply going to your manager, you're speaking to the business that you're in and saying, I want what I'm worth, which is, again, another point which I'll come to, and it's my final point, which, as much as we've said, some people have this inflated value of themselves and they think they're God's gift and should be paid millions of pounds. Don't devalue yourself. Recognize what you're worth. Recognize where you've been, because I'll be honest with you, I wouldn't walk into a job now, and if somebody offered me 100 grand, if somebody offered me 150,000 pounds to go and work for them, I'd give them the middle finger and say it's not enough. It's not worth it for me, because that amount of money, I'm worth more than that because of what I've done, because of my knowledge. Just again, similar to going back to Elon Musk. If I went and offered Elon Musk £1 million salary a year, he'd laugh in my face. He'd go, I'm worth billions, you lunatic. I'm not taking £1 million. But to Joe Schmo on the street, £1 million is like, I'd do anything for it. And trust me, I've just been to Dubai. I've seen what people would do for some money. It's crazy. So my point is, don't devalue yourself. So don't devalue yourself. Don't sell yourself out for a handbag, going back to the Dubai analogy. Make sure that you know what you're worth when you're going into a job interview. So if you think you're worth 50 grand, tell them you're worth 50 grand, but you best be bloody sure and you best be prepared as to tell them how and why you're worth 50 grand, which is exactly, again, as I say, it comes from the learning, the experience, and the confidence in what you can bring to that business.
100%. I mean, can't really add much more to that. That's a drop the mic moment, that one.
All right then. Don't sell yourself for a handbag, people. Watch this video. Spend some time thinking and digesting what we've said. And honestly, nothing is going to happen until you take action, because you can listen to this podcast and you can say, oh, well, that's a good point. That makes sense. And then you'll go to work on Monday and you'll just sit there and do nothing. Your manager, your boss, isn't going to come and knock on your door and go, I've had a brilliant idea this morning. I'm going to give you a pay rise. I'm going to give you 20 grand. They're just not going to do that. You have to be the one that's taking the action, that's approaching them and giving them good reason as to why you are worth more than what they're currently paying you. Bring that value and use some of the things that we've said today in this video with your managers, and let us know how you got on, because I would absolutely love to hear some of your stories. using what we've told you today to approach your managers, and hopefully your 2025 will be more prosperous. So thanks very much for watching. I'm Tyler Barker.
Cody Barker.
And it's another episode of Brothers in Business.